Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Speak English Podcast. I'm Sarah, and as always, I'm here with my wonderful friend, Adam.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone. It's great to be back for another episode. I'm excited about our topic today.
Me too, Adam. Today, we're going to talk about something that might sound a little bit scary at first, especially for English learners. We're calling it How to Talk First, Think Later.
That does sound a bit backwards, doesn't it? Usually, we're told to think before we speak.
Exactly. But in the context of learning English, sometimes flipping that around can be really helpful. Before we dive in, though, if you're enjoying our podcast and finding it useful, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, share this episode with your friends who are also learning English, and give us a thumbs up. It really helps us to keep creating these lessons for you.
Absolutely. Your support means the world to us. So, Sarah, talk first, think later. How does that work for learning a new language? It sounds a bit risky.
It might seem risky, Adam, but it's all about building confidence and fluency. When we're learning, we often get stuck trying to find the perfect words or construct the perfect sentence in our heads before we even open our mouths. This can lead to a lot of hesitation and missed opportunities to practice speaking.
I can definitely relate to that. I remember when I was first learning English, I would spend so much time trying to translate everything in my head that by the time I was ready to speak, the conversation had already moved on.
Exactly. And that's where the talk first, think later approach comes in. It's about giving yourself permission to speak even if you're not completely sure about the grammar or vocabulary. The goal is to get comfortable with the act of speaking itself.
So it's more about practicing the flow of conversation rather than focusing on perfect accuracy from the very beginning.
Precisely. Think of it like learning to ride a bike. You can read all the books you want about how to balance and pedal, but the real learning happens when you actually get on the bike and start pedaling. Even if you wobble a bit at first, you might fall, but you'll learn from it and eventually get better.
That's a great analogy, Sarah. So, how can our listeners start to implement this talk first, think later idea in their English learning journey?
Well, one of the first things is to lower your expectations for perfection. It's okay to make mistakes. In fact, mistakes are a natural and important part of the learning process. Every time you make a mistake and someone corrects you, you learn something new.
That's so true. I think a lot of learners are afraid of making mistakes because they feel embarrassed. But really, native speakers are usually very understanding and appreciate the effort you're making to communicate in English.
Absolutely. Most people are patient and will even help you find the right words if you're struggling. So try to reframe mistakes, not as failures, but as learning opportunities.
Okay, so step one, don't be afraid to make mistakes. What's another way to talk first, think later?
Another great way is to participate in simple conversations. Even if you only know a few words or phrases, don't wait until you feel completely fluent to start speaking. Start now. You can practice with language exchange partners, online tutors, or even just by talking to yourself in English.
Talking to yourself, that sounds a bit strange.
It might feel strange at first, but it's actually a really effective way to practice speaking without the pressure of someone else listening. You can describe what you're doing, what you're thinking, or even just narrate your day in English. It helps you get used to forming sentences and using the vocabulary you know.
That's a good tip. So even if you're just making simple sentences like, I am eating breakfast or the sun is shining, it's still helpful practice.
Exactly. Every little bit of speaking practice helps. Another thing you can do is to focus on getting your main point across rather than worrying about every single grammatical detail. If someone understands the general idea of what you're trying to say, that's a success. You can always refine your grammar later.
So it's about prioritizing communication over perfection, especially in the beginning.
Yes, exactly. Think about it. When you're having a conversation in your native language, do you always use perfect grammar? Probably not. We often use slang, incomplete sentences, and we might even make grammatical errors. The most important thing is that we understand each other.
That makes a lot of sense. So when you're speaking English, it's okay to not be perfectly grammatically correct, as long as you can communicate your message.
Absolutely. And the more you practice speaking, even with mistakes, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. Your fluency will improve naturally over time.
What about when you don't know a specific word? What should you do then?
That's a great question, Adam. When you don't know a word, don't let it stop you from speaking. Try to use other words you know to describe what you mean. For example, if you don't know the word refrigerator, you could say the cold box where we keep food.
That's a good strategy. It encourages you to think creatively with the vocabulary you already have.
Exactly. And often the person you're talking to will understand you perfectly. If not, they can always help you find the right word. It turns into a learning opportunity within the conversation itself.
So it's like improvising with your English.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Think of it as being a bit of an actor or an improviser. You have a basic idea of what you want to say, and you use the tools you have, your current vocabulary and grammar, to express that idea in the moment.
I like that. It takes some of the pressure off of having to know everything perfectly before you speak.
Definitely. And the more you improvise and speak, the more your vocabulary and grammar will naturally improve. You'll start to pick up new words and phrases from the people you're talking to, and you'll become more familiar with how native speakers construct sentences.
So one of the benefits of talking first, thinking later, is that it actually helps you learn more effectively in the long run. What about dealing with nerves? A lot of learners get really nervous about speaking English, especially in front of others.
That's completely normal. It's natural to feel a bit anxious when you're doing something new or challenging. One thing that can help with nerves is to start small. Practice speaking in low-pressure situations, like with a patient language partner or in a small group.
That makes sense. It's less intimidating to speak to one or two people you feel comfortable with than to suddenly jump into a big group conversation.
Exactly. And as you gain more confidence in those smaller settings, you can gradually start to challenge yourself with more demanding situations. Remember that everyone you're speaking to has likely been in a similar position when learning a new language.
Another thing that might help with nerves is to focus on the joy of communication. Instead of worrying about making mistakes, try to focus on the excitement of being able to connect with someone from a different culture or share your thoughts and ideas in a new language.
That's a wonderful point, Adam. Language is all about connection. When you focus on that aspect, the fear of making mistakes can seem less important. The goal is to understand and be understood.
So, to summarize so far, talking first, thinking later means giving yourself permission to speak even if you're not perfect, focusing on communication over perfect grammar, using the vocabulary you know to express yourself, and starting small to build confidence.
Exactly. And remember that consistency is key. The more you practice speaking, the more natural and comfortable it will become. Even short bursts of conversation every day can make a big difference over time.
What about listening? How does talking first, thinking later relate to improving your listening skills?
That's a great connection, Adam. When you're actively participating in conversations, you're also getting valuable listening practice. You're learning to understand different accents, speaking speeds, and ways of expressing ideas. And often the need to respond quickly encourages you to focus more intently on what the other person is saying.
So it's a two-way street. By speaking more, you're also improving your ability to listen and understand.
Absolutely. The more you immerse yourself in the language through conversation, the more your overall fluency will improve. It's like a positive feedback loop.
This is all really encouraging, Sarah. I think a lot of our listeners might feel relieved to know that they don't have to be perfect to start speaking English.
That's my hope. Learning a language is a journey, and it's okay to stumble along the way. The most important thing is to keep moving forward and to not be afraid to use your voice.
So, if someone is feeling hesitant about speaking English, What's one small thing they can do today to start practicing the talk first, think later approach?
I would suggest finding a language exchange partner or an online tutor and scheduling a short conversation. Even just 15 to 20 minutes of speaking practice can be a great way to build confidence and get used to expressing yourself in English. There are many platforms and apps that can connect you with native speakers who are also learning your language.
That's a great practical tip. And remember, everyone on those platforms is there for the same reason, to practice and improve their language skills. So there's no need to feel intimidated.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to tell your conversation partner that you're trying to practice speaking more fluently and that you might make mistakes. Most people will be very supportive and understanding.
So the key takeaway is to just start talking. Don't wait for the perfect moment or for the perfect vocabulary to magically appear in your head. Just open your mouth and start speaking, even if it's just a few simple sentences.
That's it in a nutshell, Adam. Talk first, think later is about embracing the imperfections of the learning process and focusing on the act of communication. The more you speak, the more confident and fluent you will become.
This has been a really helpful discussion, Sarah. I think a lot of our listeners will find this advice encouraging.
I hope so too, Adam. Remember, learning English should be an enjoyable experience. Don't let the fear of making mistakes hold you back from practicing and improving.
And on that note, we're coming to the end of another episode of Speak English Podcast. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing these valuable insights.
My pleasure, Adam. And thank you to all of our wonderful listeners for tuning in. Before we go, just a quick reminder to please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Share this episode with anyone you think might find it helpful, and leave us a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic and any experiences you've had with speaking English.
Yes, we really appreciate your engagement. Let us know if you've ever tried the talk first, think later approach, or if you're planning to give it a go. We're always happy to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Bye for now, and happy learning. See you next time.